They're ready upstairs for us. I'll tell you that much.
Oh, hell yeah.
Nice velocity.
Sounded like it. What a great team that was.
Oh,
so
man.
much fun to watch those guys. I mean, really good. Welcome, everybody, to the Sports Experience Podcast. Once again, I'm Dom DiTolla with my co-host Chris Quinn, and we're going to get into a little baseball action in this episode.
Yeah, we're back on the diamond.
And we're back sitting behind the dish talking about one of the greatest catchers that has ever played the game and an ultimate what-if.
That's so what, when I did this research, it's so the what-if story that we always collide into. Like, man, if this guy didn't run into these injuries, who would he have been? And
yeah.
We'll get into it.
And we'll get into it. And I mean, let me just say, it has a happy ending.
Yes. Oh my God. That's something that I'll take from a lot of these stories that we do is they're like post-career. Sometimes you're like, oh man, that guy fell off. Yeah. This guy's post-career stuff came together for him.
Yeah, it really did.
Yeah, it came together for him at the end and post. So that's something that I absolutely love. We're talking about Jake Taylor, one of the best catchers, and one of the best stories that I've researched.
Oh, definitely one of the best stories. Born May 31st, 1952 in Ada, Oklahoma. Only child of Bill and Sue Taylor. And Oklahoma, baseball crazed state. You know, you got Mickey Mantle. And the reason his dad wanted him to be a catcher was because of Hall of Fame backstop Mickey Cochran.
I feel like a lot of guys growing up in Oklahoma around here was like, all right, man, catcher, this is your future.
And he was born a little bit later than other famed Oklahoma catcher, Johnny Bench, for the Cincinnati Reds.
That's what I mean. I feel like there's a lot of good catchers coming out of Oklahoma in this era, and it's just dads just willing it, you know?
Yeah, definitely pushing them into the baseball, even in a football crazed state. Jake had a great high school career, though.
Oh, yes. I thought that was interesting.
Hit 600
yeah.
in playing high school and American Legion ball. But unfortunately, advanced scouting really wasn't a thing during that era.
But I feel like this is something that I felt like was so weird because even though scouting didn't really pick him up, I felt like a power-hitting catcher should have been on people's radar, but it just wasn't.
Well, it's like Mike Piazza almost.
Yeah.
Like we were talking about before. Like a catcher with a little bit of pop. Although Piazza, unlike Taylor, he wasn't a catcher. He was like kind of a corner infield. They didn't really know where to play him. They just made him a catcher because they're like, well,
this guy needs to be on the field.
This guy needs to be on the field and taking some hacks at the plate. Absolutely. Yeah. But because he wasn't drafted, he went to East Central University there in town. Funny thing about that university, it was home to former Pirate greats, Hall of Famers Paul and Lloyd Wainer. Big Poison and Little Poison.
Oh, dang. I didn't know that. That's a good little fact.
Oh, I did my research there,
I
buddy.
like that, man.
Oh, absolutely.
I'll tell you something that I saw that a little quote from him was he said that when he told his dad he was going to play baseball in his hometown, his dad was just like, that's amazing. Like he got seriously excited because he got to see him all the time. And they were both talking about that will probably be the end of his baseball career. Like,
oh, totally.
That was the thought was like college ball's great, but that's going to be about it. Because he was so unscouted, undrafted.
Yeah, you just figured, oh, okay, well, I guess I got to go back find a job after this.
Exactly.
Like, I'm going to college just for fun to play baseball more than anything else. Yeah.
But let me say this, as soon as he hops on that central team, he essentially becomes captain and like that main part.
Oh, totally.
What a catcher becomes to a good team, I feel like.
Yeah, because your strength has to be up the middle with your pitcher, your middle infield, your catcher, and your center fielder.
Exactly. So, yeah, I feel like a lot of college players didn't play a lot freshman, sophomore year.
Yeah.
Really came on as their number one catcher and I think number one hitter in his junior year, but definitely in his senior year.
Well, yeah, but you could tell he was a natural born leader, like a guy that could turn a team around.
Yep.
Yeah.
That was definitely what his college coach said was once he took essentially captaincy of this team, I think they had a 24-4 record or something after he took over.
Something ridiculous. Yeah, no, because he knows, and we'll see later in his major league career, he knows how to handle a pitching staff.
Yes,
especially young pitchers.
It's so smart, but that's him at his core. That's Jake Taylor.
Oh, definitely.
I saw something. He still holds the home run record for a catcher for East Central University.
That's pretty awesome, man.
Yeah.
That's legit.
Yeah, and now finally he's recognized as this great player and he gets drafted.
Yeah, he gets actually drafted because he's just the talk of college baseball, even though he's not at like a big baseball school. He is the 10th overall pick by the Boston Red Sox in the 1973 draft.
And that is, and we'll get into it, comes into this Sox organization that is like finally starting to turn it around after decades and decades of just, I feel like, poor scouting, poor player development.
Well, and you look at Boston, I mean, they're the last team to integrate. So from 46 to the impossible dream in 67, where they win the pennant,
there you go.
There's absolutely nothing. There's absolutely nothing for that franchise. And Boston takes a little bit of a gamble here, as they already have an established backstop in Carlton Fisk on their roster.
This is where I feel like why Boston is starting to turn their franchise around, is they're almost looking a decade in the future.
Yeah, they're looking to find the next guy, and because Taylor can hit, and he goes through the minor leagues at a decent pace, about the same rate as Boggsy. He's got about 4 years in the minor leagues.
I was going to say, it's a very average pace. Like, he didn't blow through the minors, but it's like almost every guy coming through at that rate was spending 3-4 years in there. So yeah,
at that particular time. But by 77, he makes the big club, and while he's kind of backup catching, he does see some time as a designated hitter.
Yes,
and he's taking his hacks up there, and the Sox are kind of liking what they see, staying competitive in that AL East. And then in 78 was kind of a tough year. 78 was kind of a tough year for him, as Boston had that huge lead. I think it was like 13 games in July over the Yankees.
Yep.
And the Yankees had fired Billy Martin. Reggie Jackson isn't happy. Thurman Munson's pissed off. Like, it's just an absolute shit show. But they end up putting it all together and end up, because Boston wins on the last day of the year to even force it, a one-game playoff. A one-game playoff for the 1978 AL East title. And that game, which Jake did not participate in, actually. He was stuck on the bench and had to watch Mike Torres go to the mound for Boston, and Boston take a lead, and it's known as the Bucky fucking Dent game.
Yep. Well, it's interesting because he is one of these bench players that just doesn't necessarily get off of this. So his name isn't associated with this horror, I guess, in Boston, if that makes sense.
No, it's not his fault.
Yes, exactly.
It's not your fault.
It's not your fault, Jake. So in 1980, he gets the starting position.
Yeah, they're finally ready to move on from Fisk, and they give the job to Jake, and he does a pretty darn good job.
Well, and this is what I found so interesting, is like, he is a absolute great hitter, and on top of that, he's a great catcher. Brought up Mike Piazza because he was the player that I felt like the next decade people are like, oh man, if Jake Taylor, and we'll get into it, if Jake Taylor goes his whole career without getting injured, he's like looking at Mike Piazza type numbers.
Or it's even Johnny Bench from Oklahoma.
It's even Johnny Bench.
Yeah,
I was just going to say
American League Johnny Bench, man.
And this is what I feel like with him in this era at Boston.
Yeah.
You know?
No, I mean, from 81 to 85, he made the All-Star game every year.
Yep.
He had 3 Gold Gloves, 1 Silver Slugger. He had 290, 125 dingers, 450 RBIs, and an OPS over 900.
I saw in 83, let me look. Yep, in 83, he actually hit 320.
Yeah, that's incredible.
Yeah.
Oh, my God, for a catcher to be able to do that, to hit for average. And, I mean, he's batting in the middle of the lineup for the Bo Sox.
Yes.
I mean, he's doing a great job.
He's an all-star. Mm-hmm. And everybody and their mothers are saying that he's a future Hall of Famer.
That's made the cover of Sports Illustrated.
Yep.
Like, he's
superstar.
He's a superstar. But things start to happen.
I was just going to say. And then, so we go through, this is literally, it's like a 4-year period where he is putting up Hall of Fame numbers. And then in 85, it's like the worst thing to happen to your star.
Yeah.
Essentially for a franchise, because this is like will kill a franchise for like multiple years, shit like this.
Because they're playing the hated Yankees, September 12th, 1985. And Clu Haywood, future Triple Crown winner, league leader in nose hairs. Someone referred to him as every time he sneezes, it looks like a party favor.
Yeah, I read a quote on him because he's a real asshole. And there's professional guys that are assholes, but read a quote that he threw at his own son at a father-son game. So, I mean, you can take that for what it is. Is it competition or is it him just being...
but runs him over at the plate and basically just a Buster Posey type devastating knee injury. But remember, this is 1985, not like 2011, 2012 surgery.
Now, I was going to say this because I feel like in 20 years, they'll be looking at the rehab we do now and they're like, whoa, that was way off.
They're going to think it's barbaric.
This is 35 years ago. So they just didn't have, first off, the surgery to repair them, and second, the rehab.
And if you're a catcher, you need your knees.
That's it.
You need them.
Yep.
You need them. And after the season, as he's rehabbing him, they end up trading him to the Cardinals in 86.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I thought that was interesting because a lot of people felt like he wasn't going to produce anymore.
And he missed the 86 Buckner team.
Yep.
Oddly enough. So he got to be spared that heartbreak, but still his career's kind of taking a dive right now.
I was going to say, because he's still held in Boston as one of these guys that, like, the what if, or
almost like a Tony Canigliaro. Yeah.
Oh, that's a great name.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
All right. So
granted, he got hit in the face with a baseball. He didn't have it. Yeah.
A little different. A little different.
A little scotch different. Yeah.
Something funny, his injury actually happened on my birthday.
Oh, really?
So
nice.
There you go. Just a little
coincidence.
Little Chrissy tangent there, going with it.
There you go.
86 traded to the Cardinals, and we were talking about this. This is why we're kind of leading into it, where he almost gets played too early.
Yeah.
And this is what the thought was that happened was he was putting too much weight, putting too much reliance on his other knee,
and it just gave.
So he
because they're playing on that old turf at Busch Stadium, shitty concrete AstroTurf.
I was going to ask you if you thought that kind of
it had to have been. Yeah.
Especially not playing on that his entire career.
Yeah.
And then coming onto it with a bad knee, and he's like favoring it. Yeah. No, it's a really, like we said, it's one of these sad fucking instances where this Hall of Famer really destroys both of his knees.
Yeah, destroys both of them.
And if you watch him in 84 or in the beginning of 85, you're like, the sky's the limit.
He's going to Cooperstown.
And then in 86...
But then in 86, everything starts falling apart in his personal life.
Oh, that's it. So here's my question, because there was rumors of possibly partying a little.
There was a false paternity suit alleged
I didn't
against
read that
him.
one. That's wild.
False paternity suit. Apparently, the lady he was with, she was a former Olympic alternate on the 80 Olympic team.
Oh, yes,
200
his long time
400 individual medley. I
thought you were talking about the lady with the paternity
Not
suit.
the lady
I was
with
like,
the paternity suit.
What?
No, apparently there was a story where she found him cheating on her with a stewardess, and
oh, jeez.
Yeah, she was like, she asked him why that happened, and he's like, well, she told me she had a better body than you, and I was there to defend your honor. Quotable Jake Taylor.
What a quote, Jesus.
What a quote. Asshole, but what a quote.
Oh, man, that's great.
And then apparently she had yelled back, that's bullshit. I have a way better body than she does.
Were people there like recording that? That's pretty ridiculous.
If this was 2015, it totally would have happened.
Oh, yeah, that's so right.
I mean, nobody's walking around with a tape recorder at that time.
Oh, that's so what they would have had to do. But the only thing I got to say is women can't live with them, and they can't pee standing up.
Yeah.
So in 86, his whole life essentially
just goes to shit.
And
then it gets even shittier because in 87, when the Cardinals don't bring him back, the Indians pick him up on waivers. And if your life already isn't bad enough, and then you have to go to Cleveland, still it's professional baseball, but it's kind of professional baseball because the Indians had the worst record in the league that year.
This is something that I feel like happens with bad franchises, is they almost take like this chance on this guy who was once great, who they can get
asses and seats for.
Exactly.
Like, come see former All-Star Jake Taylor at Cleveland Municipal Stadium.
That's exactly, and it almost never works out.
And it didn't work out.
No, they
51 and 111.
And I looked up this team because I was so interested, and this is why, because it comes back. It was a bunch of veterans who were at the end of their time who essentially, and I hate to say it, mailed it in. And I mean, you could see by their record. And so the Indians released Jake along with a ton of other veterans in this year. And he ends up playing in the Mexican League. And this is what I wanted to bring up.
The Sultanes de Monterrey.
Oh, it's so good. If anybody's ever seen Eastbound and Down, I feel like it was a mix of Mike Piazza's look and Jake Taylor's story.
Flama Blanca.
Just
with a little John Rocker racism peppered in.
Exactly. Just
for
a little
Kenny
pepper.
Powers.
Yeah,
not Jake Taylor, but Kenny Powers.
Exactly. Nice little quote I read on that. It was Kenny Powers looks like Mike Piazza if he's hit by a frying pan. Thought that was pretty accurate.
I feel like that's pretty accurate.
But back to Jake Taylor. His life went from essentially like superstar to nobody. And it had to feel like overnight.
And yeah, definitely overnight with the knee injuries. And now you're basically just drinking tequila, carousing with Mexican hookers, and trying to eat the worm.
That's what the report from, I guess, the Mexican scouts was that he was there to party, even though he was still raking it in there. He was partying really.
And how could you not, though? I mean, you got to make the best out of a bad situation. You got to make the best out of a bad situation.
And that's 100% what he did, which is why, and this is where we're coming.
This is where we're coming in hot.
Why in the '89 season, this is where we have to talk about the Indians franchise.
Yeah, we have to talk about them because they had new ownership in '89.
Their
former owner, Donald Phelps.
Yep.
He ended up succumbing to a heart attack, and in his will, he passed the team down to one of his, I believe it was his fifth wife, who was an ex-showgirl in Las Vegas, Rachel Phelps.
Well, I mean, come on. I feel like it's unfair that we kind of classify her as that. She's definitely a businesswoman now.
She's very savvy.
Yes.
She's what the kids today call a bad bitch.
Oh, that's pretty damn accurate with her.
Yeah.
So there's conflicting reports about this. I wanted to ask you about this because there's conflicting reports that she picked up a bunch of players, and
Jake included,
and it was almost mismanagement. And then there was other reports that she wanted to essentially tank the season and try and move the franchise.
Well, it's been confirmed, it was kind of, at the time, it was kind of, like just speculation.
Yeah.
Like, because, they had their owners meeting and she gives out these papers, right, of the players they're inviting to camp. And there's this one guy who's like, well, most of these guys are way past their prime. And another scout's like, some of these guys never even had a prime. And apparently, she put a dead guy on the list.
Oh, wow.
A player who had died years before that she was going to invite to camp.
So she was purposefully tanking,
It's come out in interviews where she said she wanted to tank him because she hated Cleveland.
Yeah, I heard that.
She just came into the team because she was, married to Mr. Phelps or whatever.
Yep.
And she wanted to take the team because this is 1989. MLB hasn't expanded to Florida yet. She wanted to move the Indians to Miami.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Oh, wow. That would have been
to Miami.
so...
And Jake was part of that cavalcade of, shall we say, rejects who were going to make it happen.
Well, I heard that she wanted to bring him back because she could pay him the league minimum. And
totally the league minimum. Yeah. Because baseball players make pretty good salaries.
Even at the league minimum.
At the league minimum, yeah, totally.
Yes. So I heard this from one of his friends. He gets a call from the organization, and he thought it was so outlandish that a Major League Baseball team was calling him again, that his response was, if you're going to make this shit up, you might as well say you're from the Yankees. And it was such a great thing because he thought it was so outlandish.
Yeah, he thought it was so outlandish, but then he ends up at High Corbett in Tucson with just a mess of crazy other teammates. Hey, everybody. Just want to take a quick break to let you know that our Sports Experience podcast is brought to you by Engle Studio here, and they're here in Tucson for all your recording needs.
Well, and this, I'll tell you what, she brings in, like I said, the Indians before Phelps died were planning a rebuild.
Yeah.
Her rebuild was a little bit different than what they were planning, and she goes out and gets a manager who she thought was going to be awful, but turned out to be great.
He had managed the Toledo Mudhens for the last 37 years.
And she probably didn't realize that Lou Brown was going to step in and motivate this.
He motivated the shit out of that team.
This group of great young talent with Jake just at the helm.
Jake at the helm. Like they had a guy they got out of the California Penal League. He's a fireballing pitcher.
And you know what? It's so interesting because, and we look at 89-90 season and the 90-91 season.
Yeah.
And the improvement he has, and we're talking about Ricky.
Yeah,
Wild Thing Vaughn. The improvement he has in the 89-90 season, and then the drop-off when Jake, and we'll get into this, isn't the catcher anymore in the 91-92 season.
Yeah, because you needed Jake there.
Yeah.
But
we're talking 89-90.
They got a guy who just showed up to camp.
Oh, yeah.
In just the back end of his car was a VW Bug and the front end was a Rolls Royce. He showed up, they kicked him out of camp, and then he made the team by running fucking wind sprints in his pajamas, and he was faster than anybody. Willie Mays Hayes led Major League Baseball in steals that year.
I was going to say, like, we could probably do a couple of podcasts on a couple of other guys on this team, but we're going to stick with Jake Taylor.
Stick with Jake.
But you're right. All these young guys coming out of nowhere, and then like a veteran pitcher like Eddie Harris, excuse me.
And then they got this one guy out of Cuba. He was a defector. He came over on a piece of furniture. He didn't even leave because the communists were in charge. Well, partly because the communists were in charge, but they wouldn't let him practice his religion, which was voodoo.
Oh God, I forgot that.
Right-handed power hitter Pedro Serrano.
Oh yeah. Man, yeah. So this 89 season, they start off exactly what Miss Phelps wants.
Yeah, they're just god awful.
They're the dregs. They're exactly what it was when Jake was with them in 87. And it's this feeling around the clubhouse. I wanted to bring this guy up because he gets brought back later. But they essentially have one high-priced talent.
And it's third baseman Roger Dorn.
Exactly.
And he's kind of a pretty boy. He's at the end of his career. He probably should have been let go with all those other high-priced veterans. And I remember there was a moment, though, that season where Vaughn is pitching a shutout into the ninth inning, or he's winning a game into the ninth inning, ready to close out a complete game.
It's almost one of the first times that he's in this
situation because the team is starting to improve around mid-season.
Yeah.
And Dorn apparently tanks a play. Like, he doesn't dive for it, doesn't really go after a ground ball in the 5-5 hole between third and short.
I saw this in an interview. I know what you're talking about.
And Taylor, after the game, even though the Indians did win, Taylor went to Dorn's house and told him, if I ever catch you tank another play again, I'm going to cut your nuts off and stuff them down your fucking throat.
Yeah, that was something that Dorn said that made him realize, like, oh, I can't
have to
this
try.
year off.
I can't take it off, you know.
Because that's what he thought was going to happen. Essentially, this was going to be his last year, and he was just going to lollygag, and I use that.
Lollygaggers!
I use that as a baseball term.
But they're like 500 at midseason.
And then I think it's the GM.
Yeah, Charlie Donovan, the GM,
talks to Lou Brown, and he's like, man, I hate to tell you what the front office's plan for this team was.
Because what ended up happening is they're not even flying on nice airplanes. They're on stuff that was used like World War II, basically, going to games on buses. Jake is reading Moby Dick to get back with his lady, Lynn Wesson, who's now a librarian. He's reading the Moby Dick comics.
I heard that. Another one I heard was a lot of these, there was like, and this is the way clubhouses go, half of them are super religious, half of them aren't. They said once they got those really bad planes, they were like, the whole team became religious.
Yeah.
It was like, no, God's saving us on these. And that's how bad the airplanes were. They, like, you think it's bad that your planes duct taped together. That's how they were getting around.
But Charlie tells Lou what's happening. He tells him what's happening as far as them trying to tank and move to Miami, and how everyone would be let go even if they don't finish last. Everyone, like, it's their last hurrah together, all of them.
They have no chance. Like, if they don't do it, they're going to bring in the dregs.
They're going to bring in even shittier players.
Exactly.
And what ends up happening is they rally around each other.
Now, I wanted, because there's a story, and it was, I couldn't confirm it.
Yeah, I haven't confirmed this either.
But so there's been various pictures of Miss Phelps taken. I mean, she was a showgirl in the 80s.
Yeah.
Or in the, early 80s kind of thing. So
70s, yeah.
70s, yeah. There's various Polaroids or whatever you want to call it. I don't know if Polaroid was even invented then.
Who knows, but it doesn't matter.
Exactly. So they ended up getting a naked picture of her, blowing it up to life size, and every time they would win, they would take a small piece of clothing off. And the way Lou Brown set it up was
every time we win,
oh, that's so great,
peel a section.
And then seriously, if they ended up winning the whole thing, well, to go to the playoffs, she would be butt-ass naked. And they needed to win.
They had to catch the Yankees in late August. They were 15 games back. I mean, they're not a bad team, but that's still a pretty insurmountable type of thing, because you only have 1 month left to play to make up that type of ground.
I'll tell you what else is crazy that I found is like the Yankees for Jake Taylor is like the Yankees.
It's like the Yankees for Ken Griffey Jr.
There you go.
Yeah, totally.
So they start to turn it around, and people literally are saying like Lou Brown is this great motivator, but then Lou really is giving a lot of credit to Jake and what he's doing with these guys.
Totally handling the pitching staff. I mean, when your number one starter is a juvenile delinquent in the offseason, that's pretty good.
Well, everybody thought that Vaughn would take 2-3 years to come around, and he came around in 6 games.
Yeah.
So
seriously.
then you got to give it up to the catcher for something like that. And the velocity that he was putting on those pitches, man.
And then you have Harry Doyle up in the booth calling all the games.
Oh, yeah, I forgot, man. That's one of the great call men of baseball.
Yeah, Harry Doyle is just the best call man in baseball.
Every time I see somebody pitching outside, I always think, just a bit outside.
He tried the corner and missed.
How are guys laying off pitches this close?
Is good.
All right, so we see this team turn around,
and they catch the Yankees on the last day of the season.
And it's such a great story for Jake, because they catch this team that he has been battling his whole career,
like Boston in '78.
Yeah,
when you have the 1-game AL East playoff, but now it's the Indians, and they haven't been to a postseason series since 1954.
Wow.
Yeah. Pretty crazy.
I know.
And they go in, and while Vaughn is a scheduled starter, he kind of struggled against the Yankees, and Taylor kind of knows this. So him and Brown decide to go with the veteran Harris in the game.
Which I think is right, but there's no doubt that Harris isn't going to do a complete game. I'll say that.
He will give it his all, and he'll have that veteran savvy to him.
Yeah.
But there's a little controversy that involves Jake before the game far as there's some stuff that goes on, because allegedly Vaughn had sex with Dorn's wife, and Jake kind of has to keep them separated, that type of deal. And then even before the game, allegedly Serrano, because he's practicing voodoo.
Wow, I heard this was so wild.
He wanted to sacrifice a live chicken before the game for good luck or something. I don't know.
Yeah.
And what ends up happening, because what was it? Hayes was telling Taylor, and he's like, we can't have guys puking in the locker room before the game. You got to do something. So what Taylor does is enlist the third base coach to go get KFC and one whole chicken. And
he brings it to Serrano, and people are talking about it because Serrano's kind of expecting a live chicken to show up, and he brings it to him, and he gives it to him, and people are just kind of like, he just like accepts it.
Yeah.
If that makes sense. He's like, okay, well, that's it.
The Colonel can solve a lot of people's problems. Let's just say that.
And luckily for them, because Serrano, he had been hitting pretty much, I think the Yankees are the worst team that he hits. You know what I mean?
Well, because Serrano could never hit off-speed stuff.
Is that what it was?
Breaking stuff.
Okay.
So the Yankees were pretty wise to that, and they weren't giving any mistake pitches, despite him being, the team's best power hitter. And, the game is one of the most exciting I think I've ever seen.
Yeah.
The Yankees go up early, 2-0, but in the, I believe, bottom of the 6th, Serrano ties the game when, after going down 0-2 on breaking balls, he served up a fastball.
Yep.
Pitcher just thought he had him.
Yeah. No, it's one of those mistakes that a pitcher will make, and he tattoos.
He knocked it out of Municipal Stadium, which is almost, I think Cecil Fielder might be one of the only few people to do that. And he hits it out of the stadium. It's tied 2-2.
Tied 2-2.
Goes into the 9th, and Harris has got some men on base. And his arm is tired, and Brown's got to make a decision. And he goes to the Wild Thing out of the bullpen.
I thought it was interesting. I read a or I saw it in an interview later, Jake Taylor was talking about it. He said he didn't think he was going to pull Ricky Vaughn out of the bullpen no matter what, because he had such a horrible record that year. And he asked Lou after the game, and he said, no. He was prepped that whole game. Like, he was like, Lou had this in his mind, like, no.
He had a hunch he was due.
He had a hunch he was due. What a great little quote that is.
Yeah.
And it was, oh, man.
And he's facing Haywood, who had basically ruined Taylor's career.
I was going to say,
won the Triple Crown that year.
We got to bring Haywood back, who, like we said, it wasn't a dirty play for the time.
Yeah.
Nowadays, people would be like, whoa, that was rough. And we see him do what the Yankees tried to do to Serrano, which is overpower the batter.
But Wild Thing did it.
Yeah.
3 pitches, 3 strikes, all of which 100 miles an hour.
Oh, that's so wild.
And Taylor's back there, and they go to the bottom of the 9th. Willie Mays Hayes leads off, gets on with a little excuse me hit, steals second base, and who comes to the plate?
But Jake Taylor. And this is one of the best moments for, especially if you're an Indians fan.
Yeah, because he comes to the plate, and what does he do? He calls his shot like Babe Ruth in the series, like any young kid would in a baseball game.
Yeah, like exactly.
And
the first pitch comes in, and he brushes him back.
He brushes him back because you're not going to show a guy up like that.
Exactly. But this is why I felt like it was so special, is he gets right back up, and he points again. And before the pitch, he looked at his third base coach, and he saw the infield playing back. Yeah.
And in such a savvy veteran move, pitch comes in, because Hayes, best base runner in the entire American League.
Yep.
Lays down a bunt with the third baseman almost lined at the bag.
Oh, we forgot Hayes stole second.
Yeah, I did. Yeah. I
okay. I don't know.
Yeah.
Sometimes I forget if we have mentioned it. So Hayes is on second, and he completely fakes out this third baseman. Actually, if you watch the video, you can see the baseman go, shit.
Yeah, he's just like,
it's because, I mean,
the bunt's out of nowhere. He's calling a shot.
And he bunts it, and it is so perfectly laid down. And this is something that is so ridiculous because he still has to leg it out to first.
Yeah.
With those
horrible knees.
And they stay together, and he just makes it.
He barely makes it, but Haywood, who catches it, doesn't react fast enough in time because on the pitch, Hayes is running. He's got a head start.
Yep.
And because they throw it to first base, he's coming in, rounding third, trying to score the winning run, and he does.
Yep.
And the place goes bonkers.
And that's, I mean, it's without a doubt Indians' best win for decades and decades. I can't even think of a recent one.
And while they do lose the ALCS, they get swept by the White Sox that year. Things are looking pretty good for the following season for the Indians. Miss Phelps, because the team didn't lose, ends up selling the team to now retired Roger Dorn.
Dorn and some investors, which I feel like mid-season kind of bites them in the ass. So.
Oh, very much so. But they get a good free agent acquisition, which ends up kind of hurting Taylor.
Yes.
They get Jack Parkman from Oakland, all-star catcher, to bolster their lineup and provide some youth behind the plate.
Yeah.
And, they're looking like they're contenders again. They're really getting excited in Cleveland.
Pre-season, people are talking about them going in like they were the last season. Like, everybody should be producing.
And they get to spring training. Taylor's obviously focused. He's ready to play another year. He's ready to try one more time to win a World Series. And while you have guys like Hayes making movies with Jesse the Body Ventura, what was that Razzie-winning film, Black Hammer, White Lightning?
Yeah, it's a bad one, but if you watch it, it's great for its campiness.
Oh, great campiness. And then Vaughn decides to be Mr. GQ and not the awesome biker that he was.
Well, you see everybody changes their personality, and this captain's role that Jake had last year is essentially taken away because they just don't want that veteran. How do I put this?
Serrano became a Buddhist for a while. What the hell was
so
that?
Weird. Well, crazy. And then Dorn becomes their owner. So I mean, it's
just everything is out of sorts.
Harris retires.
Harris is gone. I mean, what you're really working with is a team that's completely lost its focus.
Exactly.
And you see that for the first few months of the season.
Well, I want to say this. He doesn't make the team.
No, Taylor, because they have another young catcher in camp, Rube Baker. Taylor actually helped him out with his little Mackie Sasser problem.
Oh, yeah,
of throwing the ball back to the pitcher.
Yeah, I heard about that, which led the organization to see him be management material.
And apparently all Rube needed to do, because he read Playboy articles religiously, was just remember them as he was throwing the ball back after a pitch. Oh, yeah.
I didn't hear that. That's a ridiculous one.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, that's great. So he becomes Lou Brown's pretty much assistant manager.
Yeah.
I don't even know what his position was
Bench
called.
coach.
Bench coach.
Yeah.
And I think they started 1-18.
Something like Chicago Cubs level
It was,
garbage.
Yeah, and they're doing absolutely awful. And one of the worst things to happen to one of these guys in this high pressure management position, Lou Brown, has a heart attack.
He has a heart attack, and then they have to trade Parkman because Dorn can't make next month's payroll. Like, he's putting proctology signs in the outfield.
They said that Dorn, and this is what I kind of alluded to, had real problems with investors, and he essentially bought the team for way too much money and didn't have enough money to sustain his ownership.
He managed to pick up their left fielder, Hiroshi Kamikaze Tanaka, in that trade.
Yep.
But it was just an afterthought.
Yeah,
you just traded the only good player on your team, or the only focus player on your team.
Yeah, I like that, because I feel like they had good players, but nobody was focused.
Yeah, but
Traded them to their rivals.
Yeah,
at
to the
this
White
point.
Sox. Yeah, and what ends up happening is, after Brown has his heart attack, guess who's coaching the team?
And this is where I feel like Jake kind of takes this team under his wing again.
Yeah, he takes him under his wing.
Jake Taylor becomes the manager, thinking soccer.
And the best part is because Dorn has to sell the team, he ends up having to sell it back to Rachel Phelps.
And this is one of the things.
Mad.
This is one of the things I was talking about. Is she is a savvy businesswoman in that she makes hundreds of millions of dollars tens of millions of dollars on this deal,
but she doesn't even need to.
Doesn't need to.
She just is doing it all out of spite, and much like the year before, the team rallies. They rally for a nice run. The only one really struggling towards the end of that is Vaughn.
Yeah.
Because Taylor's not back there coaching him up.
Yeah, well, that's something and this is what I wanted to allude to, was he was so great when Jake was catching, and then as soon as he's gone, he loses all, and people were talking about it, all mental focus, and really is like a different pitcher from one year to the next until the end of the season.
Until the end of the season, because they go to the LCS, they see the White Sox again, they see Parkman again. And they start out like gangbusters. They go up 3-0.
Yep.
Like, Taylor's one win away from a World Series appearance. And
everything falls to shit.
Then they get the brakes beat off them.
Yeah.
In the next three.
This
is pre-Red Sox coming back against the Yankees in 2004. I mean, this could have actually happened.
Yeah.
And they go to the Game 7, and Taylor doesn't start Vaughn because he doesn't have it.
Yeah.
And
again, so this is like the year before, you know?
Yeah. And what ends up happening is the Indians are taking a very precious lead. The bases are loaded with 2 out in the bottom of the 9th inning of Game 7. Taylor goes to the bullpen, much like Lou Brown did the year before.
Yep.
And he brings out the wild thing. And he's got his stuff back.
I don't know what
you
happened.
have these crazy fans throughout the year just taunting Vaughn from the stands. I think my favorite one was, "Vile thing, you make my butt sting."
Oh my God, that's so wonderful.
You make everything embarrassing.
But yeah, he shows up, and he's a guy that shows up when the chips are down.
And he goes after Parkman. He loads the bases to get to Parkman,
which is not baseball savvy.
No. I mean, unless it's Barry Bonds, you don't do that.
Yes.
But he ends up doing the same thing he did the year before. Straight gas.
And he had it. That's the thing that we look at was, I don't know if Jake finally got him out of his head or what, but
yeah,
he produces when they needed it, because bases loaded with Parkman on the shit, man.
Throwing them straight gas. It was amazing. And the Indians go to their first World Series. They win their first World Series since 1948 with Jake Taylor as the manager.
And something I read, because he ends up managing a couple of years after this, But something I read was he ended up retiring because he didn't want the same fate as Lou Brown. He didn't want to have a heart attack, and he ended up starting a family with his longtime love, Lynn Weston. And actually, if you see when they beat the Yankees, if you watch the end of that game, you can see her in Jake's arms.
Wow.
Yeah, it's one of those.
Awesome. Oh, that's
one
great.
of those that gets pointed out, and you're like, oh, there she is.
Oh.
They actually go on and have 2 kids.
That's great, man.
I don't know if you saw this, which is kind of a bummer, but they were Olympic hopefuls for 2020, and that just kept getting pushed back.
Man, fuck COVID.
Yeah, I know. But because she was she was an Olympic alternate for I think it was the
80 team that they boycotted the Olympics. Yeah.
There you go. There you go. You know what I'm talking about.
I know what you're throwing down, buddy.
And that's Jake Taylor.
Jake Taylor, everybody.
Hey, everybody. This is just a stock message at the end of every episode. We hope you enjoyed whatever athlete and or team that episode was about. Just want to say, give us a quick follow on all social media. We have a YouTube channel, the Sports Experience Podcast, and we're on Instagram, DiTolla Dominic, and myself, C. Quinn Comedy. So give us a follow all around. We're always recording right here at Engle Studio. Thank you all very much.